Hey guys, welcome back to Zero Escape Zero Time Dilemma, the debriefing. You can see I've unlocked all the cinema files, which we're going to go through in a moment, but unfortunately I wasn't able to unlock all the quest files, which means I didn't get the achievement to unlock all quest files and subsequently unlocking all the achievements, but that's okay, I can live with that, I think. Main story clocked in at just a little over 20 hours, which is not bad actually. I'm quite pleased. It didn't feel too short, and it didn't feel overly long where it was dragging either, which is some points in ZTD's favor. I'll save my thoughts for Zero Time Dilemma until the very end, because I'm hoping for some answers to some of the questions I've got. I've written them on a little notepad here, but maybe they're answered in these post-epilogue files that we've got here. I see we've got Sean, Eric, Mira, we've got post-payoff, Akane and Junpei, post-payoff, Carlos, so maybe they'll answer some of the questions there. I don't know if I'm going to read all of these. Like, I just quickly checked out Decision Game Rules 1. That's obviously self-explanatory, so I think I'll just read all of them and I'll just share with you guys ones that I find interesting, or, you know, ones that I feel like I should cover, like the post-apocalypse, I think, is one that's pretty interesting, or post-payoff. So, post-apocalypse, that must be the post-ending for the apocalypse form, right? Anyway, yeah, so let me go through these one by one, and we'll see how we go. 6 billion Radical 6 deaths. Technically, Radical 6 did not kill 6 billion people. The spreading of the virus caused chaos and panic around the world, prompting the explosion of several nuclear reactors. It is those explosions which led to the 6 billion deaths. Yeah, we saw that at the, well, not the end of Virtue's Last Reward, one of the endings of Virtue's Last Reward, where the giant red ball in the sky is not actually the moon, the lunar eclipse, but actually Earth itself, just decimated by these reactors exploding sometime around April, wasn't it? To the power of 100 is this number. Reverie Syndrome, also known as the Daydream Syndrome. The brain cannot handle the amount of information entering the brain and, in effect, shuts down. The cause of the syndrome is currently unknown, but we did learn that Maria was suffering from Reverie Syndrome, and Akane postulated that it is to do with the fact that she's constantly shifting to a point where it's just chaos in her brain, just going through different multiverses and whatnot, I guess. Crash Keys, a secret organization created by Akane Kurashiki. Their ultimate goal is to create a better future. Akane's brother, Aoi, is second in command and is assisting her from outside. Right. I'll touch on that a bit more in a moment. Free the Soul, a cult organization that desires to save mankind by creating their ideal new world. The head of this group is a mysterious figure called Brother. Hydrofluoric acid is an aqueous solution of hydrogen fluoride, HF. This acid is a contact poison that is highly corrosive. DCOM's management. DCOM is not a government-run facility, but is privately owned by a company researching space development. The company is largely owned by Free the Soul, but that detail is kept hidden from all knowledge. Of course it is. That would explain, well, how Zero has a hand in DCOM. Antidote hint. Oh, that's pretty cool. So if I ever got stuck, this is how I'd come to the answer. Nice. Nice little table. Shift, the phenomenon which allows a person to send their consciousness to other universes and histories. It is an acronym for Space-Time Human Internal Fluctuating Transfer. Sounds like someone really wanted to spell the word shift. Leucloridium, a parasite that uses snails as initial hosts and then transfers to birds. The egg originates in the digestive tract of a snail and then migrates to the tentacles. The leucloridium causes the tentacle to take on the appearance of a worm or caterpillar, which draws the attention of birds. Once eaten by a bird, the parasite will lay an egg that leaves the body with the feces, which then becomes food for snails, and the cycle continues. What if the snail mentioned in Zero's story had a leucloridium inside? Good question. I don't know. Spinochoroides telini? Also known as the hairworm. There we go. I think we'll just refer to it as the hairworm. It is thin and long. The larvae are hatched in aquatic environments and then consumed by water insects, which are then eaten by land-based bugs like crickets and praying mantises. Once the parasite reaches adulthood, it can control its host, leading it to water to drown it. The parasite then escapes the host and returns to the water, where it reproduces. The larvae are eaten by water insects, and the cycle repeats. And Toxoplasmi gondii, a single-cell organism with a width of about 2 to 3 micrometers and length of about 4 to 7 micrometers. One of the most common parasites, its definitive host is the cat. An infected rat loses its fear of cats, making it more susceptible to be preyed upon by its predator. This is all stuff that I think Akane was mentioning, right? Because she seems to have All this knowledge tucked away somewhere. She's a great pub quizzer, I'm sure. At least in the science section. If metempsychosis really exists, what are the chances you are an intelligent life form in your next life, as opposed to everything else? Taking a number of things into account, everything else has a much greater chance. Yes, right, because intelligent life is just one choice, whereas all the other choices are plentiful. But if you were reborn as a duck, frog, or even a paramecium, there would be no way you'd be able to know and recognize your own existence. In effect, it's not any different from being a sponge or a rock. Okay. That being said, rocks and sponges don't have the wills of their own, aside from a few notable exceptions. Was that like a SpongeBob reference? So you wouldn't care about your next life. Why would you? An example, you're in a totally dark room with the die in front of you. If you roll a 1, the light turns on, but any other number keeps the light off. You can roll it as many times as you wish. So what will the dice number be when you see it? 1, of course, because you can't see any other result. Another example, the whole world and everything on it stops in the next second. Exactly a minute later, disregarding who would be the one timing this, it all starts up again. No one will even notice that time stopped. In other words, there's no point to considering that 1 minute, as you can't say that it even existed. It's the same as being reborn, a duck, frog, or a yellow sponge, to die in the dark and the halted world. There are scholars who claim that if metempsychosis is absolutely true, you're guaranteed to be reborn as an intelligent life form. It's possible this is a result of the observable selection effect, an aspect of the anthropic principle. Oh, that's pretty interesting. That is, yeah, I guess so, right? Because you wouldn't know that you were a duck or a sponge, so it doesn't really count. And if you go through all these choices and eventually you land on being an intelligent life, all those other things you wouldn't even recognize or register. And, well, you know, not that you even remember your past life, your past intelligent life anyway, if you were reborn. So, I see. I think I got it on the time example. I think that was a bit better than the dice one, but yeah. Okay, cool. Stabat Mater Dolorosa, from a Latin hymn. It roughly translates to "The Sorrowful Mother Stood." Okay. Was this said when one of the teams was executed, I guess? Language center, the popularly held belief that our language center resides in the left side of the brain, but recent research has revealed that the side differs among individuals. Roughly 30 to 50% of those with their language center in the right hemisphere end up left-handed, while only a small percentage are right-handed. The side containing the language center is called the major hemisphere. Monty Hall problem. A probability puzzle based off of a TV game show hosted by Monty Hall that is strongly divisive among scholars. The problem is as follows. 3 doors are before you. One hides a prize behind it, while the other 2 hide goats. The door with the prize is random, and only known by Monty. Monty asks, which one of these 3 doors will you open? You then pick a door, but it remains closed. One of the 2 remaining doors is opened, revealing a goat. It's possible both doors contain a goat, and you pick the door with the prize. But then Monty asks, now, there are only 2 closed doors. Which one do you choose? Will you change your mind, or stay with your first choice? How should you answer? I'm glad that this came up, because it's one of the few things I actually knew coming into Zero Time Dilemma, which is great, because there was no way I was going to know anything about leucloridium, or toxoplasma gondii, or metempsychosis. You'd think, there's no way to know which is right, but the chances are 2 to 1. The probability for either door is the same. However, this question will be answered in the game. Asterisk, the gas mask's location is completely random, therefore using probability to choose the correct locker may still result in getting the wrong one simply because of bad luck. I think I read about that, someone mentioned that in the comments, so thank you for that. I think I know that Monty Hall is actually pretty divisive. I think it was a lot easier to comprehend with the 10 lockers rather than 3 doors, right? Because when you first choose the locker, it's a 10% chance of getting it right. But then once all the other lockers open, revealing just one, you can see that it's a lot more likely that you're going to choose the gas mask if you switch lockers, compared to the Monty Hall problem where you start off with a 33% chance, right? Anyway, that was just my thoughts on that. Latin phrase 1, Decine fata dom flecti sperare precando. From the Aeneid, it roughly translates to fate, and the dooming gods are deaf to tears. Ooh, I like that quote. Fate and the dooming gods are deaf to tears. Basically, life doesn't give a shit if you're whining or not. You take the hand that you're dealt. Quantum computer. Computers function by storing data as 1s and 0s in a binary number format. Quantum computers store data as 1s, 0s, and a superposition of both. This allows them to run multiple computations simultaneously by performing them not only in our universe, but other universes as well. Freaky. Latin phrase 2, mors certa, hora incerta. It translates to death is certain, its hour is uncertain. Ain't that the truth? Preach, brother. Multiverse in the single path 1. Video game structure can help explain. Protagonist P travels down a road until he reaches a three-way fork. You, the player, choose the left path, and P ends up abducted by terrorists and holed up in an underground cell forever. Well, jeez. Try a second time by selecting the right path. You avoid the terrorists. P is hit by a truck and permanently handicapped. Is there a happy ending to this? Getting annoyed, you sigh and go back to choose the last route straight down the middle. P comes across a man attacking a girl from an affluent family and fights him off. The girl and P fall in love, get married, and live together happily. There we go. Happy ending. By this point, the game is mostly over. It is this ending that is considered the best end. But is it really? Taking the multiverse theory into consideration, the P who chose the left path, LP, must think, why am I not the P who chose the center path and instead stuck in this cell? But if there is only one world, then LP's history disappears once P chooses the center path. Right. So, but the game is going by the multiverse, multiple worlds theory, right, where history isn't overwritten by switching paths. There's just two paths that branch off and exist parallel to one another, right? As we can see in the flow, and not only in this game, but Virtue's Last Reward as well. So, some of you may be thinking, then why isn't it just a straight road? But it's not that simple. What about what happens with the P who picked the right path, RP? He gets into an accident, but after extensive rehab wins a gold medal at the Paralympics. He marries a beautiful wife, has several children, and by the time he's old, there are many grandchildren too. So consider again, if the world is one single path, what about RP's life? Where did his glory go? What about his happiness with his family? If the only one who remains is CP with his rich wife, is that a true happy end? Well, that's quite difficult to explain, right? Because it's not just one middle path, because that middle path will also have a bunch of branches as well as the right path having a bunch of branches, and surely the left path as well has a bunch of branches, even though he's just stuck in a cell after being kidnapped by terrorists. So you can't really say that one path leads to a true end. There's so many different worlds that it's hard to tell which would be a best end, right? Latin phrase 3, Plaudite, Acta est Fabula. A familiar line from VLR, it translates to applaud, the play is over. I love these Latin phrases, they're pretty cool. Active time, cool. Where the air ducts go. Wards C, Q, and D being in the same space means the air ducts in the prep room and lounge don't lead to other wards. Inside is simply a small space for Gab, where he often rests on a rug. Okay. I didn't even consider the fact that the air ducts, of course, don't lead anywhere because the lounge is the same shared space for all teams. So, interesting. I'm glad they kind of covered that. Not on my list of questions, but good to know all the same. The murder, 17 years ago. 17 years ago, a young mother went jogging in the park. She reached a fork, which usually goes right, but on this day she decided to go left. Calamity ensued. Why? Because there was a snail on the path. No one knows why she avoided the snail. Was she afraid of them? Or felt a sense of danger from it? Whatever the case may be, the snail caused her to switch to the left path. As a result, she was killed by a girl. The suspect who was taken into custody, a Japanese man, was not the culprit. He was falsely convicted and executed, and his wife committed suicide in her grief. The two left young children behind. The convicted man called a taxi before his arrest, but the taxi ended up picking up another fare instead, a brilliant surgeon. However, the car became involved in an accident, killing the surgeon as well as the young boy, who was waiting for an operation by the surgeon. If that snail hadn't been on the right path 17 years ago, what would have happened? Life is simply unfair, don't you think? Life is definitely unfair. Post-apocalypse 1. This must be fate. Fate? Diana? Oh, okay. This must be fate. I'm guessing that's her. Fate? Diana smiles weakly from the bed at Sigma's question. Don't you remember? You told me that yourself. Me? I never said it. If it really was me, then... Yes. The Sigma who was 67 inside. Diana shifts her frail hand closer to Sigma, and he gently grasps it between his own. The Sigma before her is not the one who was trapped in the shelter. It's the same body, but a different consciousness. On April 13, 2029, Sigma was at the headquarters of Crash Keys, his eye and arms replaced with robotic ones. There, the young Sigma returns to his body from 45 years in the future and begins to carry out Akane's instructions. Right, so that was like the very end of Virtue's Last Reward, where we shift back to that day and we meet with Akane, who's wearing the cultist robes, and she explains what we need to do. Okay, so I mean, would Diana be freaked out? Just like a different consciousness, like a younger Sigma mentally just takes over the body of the person that she loves, and he wouldn't have any idea, right? He would just be like, who are you? Like, I'm in love with you? Well, at least my older version is? Okay. How many years has it been since you came here, Diana? A little over 3, I think. I followed you here in May 2029. A violent coughing fit takes over after she speaks. Sigma helps her sit up and softly pats her back until it subsides. Why didn't the medical pod work? I told you. It's fate. Diana's skin is deathly pale, but her eyes still shine with life, just like a child's. So was she infected with Radical 6? Because we do know that she did die like quite a bit of time before Virtue's Last Reward, and Sigma ended up modeling Luna after her. I've always dreamt of coming here. Did you know that Diana is the name of the goddess of the moon? I've wanted to do this ever since I was little, so I'm perfectly fine with dying here. What are you saying? I've been able to spend the last 3 years living with you, Sigma. I've treasured every moment. Sigma lowers his head, his expression pained. Please don't make that face. You don't need to be sad. In the year 2074. Oh, sorry. Please don't make that face. You don't need to be sad. In the year 2074, you will shift back to Christmas 2028, and the next day, old me will head to Decom facility in the Nevada desert and meet you. Diana nods. Sigma closes his eyes and shakes his head. That's not it. I mean, I'm in love with the you. His declaration stops as Diana's lips close over his in a kiss, and the rest of his words are lost. After a moment, Diana murmurs, it must be a wonderful future. The future where we found each other. In 2028. Sigma holds on to her tightly. Aching, heartfelt sobs echo within a cold, silent world. So Diana, of course, made it to the moon, because she lived with Sigma for 3 years, then she passed away over there, and that probably explains why he named Luna Luna, because lunar, right? I wish there was a bit easier way to tell who was talking, reading these logs, but that's alright. Okay. A robot's name, the robot with a round helmet on his head, is named Sean. He has never been called anything other than that by those in the underground shelter. I know. Pretty damn clever, you. Latin phrase 5, audentem forsque venusque uvat. A phrase from Ovid. It roughly translates to both love and luck help the bold. Right. I thought it's translated to this is yet another destiny, but clearly that was just an extra English line that he said. I wonder why he said that when he died. The other Phi, baby Phi, was indeed transported from 1904 to 2008, but a Phi also remained in 1904, of course, because there would have been a copy would have been made. Whatever happened to that Phi? Rumor is she became a brilliant scientist and worked at a research facility in the US well into her hundreds. The facility was researching the transporter, and that's where the Phi from 1904 is sent. What's with all these German scientists? Because the thing was in Germany, right, at the time, and then she moved to the US. Wait, hang on. The facility was researching the transporter, and that's where the Phi from 1904 is sent. Okay, cool. Wait, so she was researching in the facility where her other self was sent to, so she probably lived long enough to see her other self just emerge from the transporter? Huh. Post-payoff, Carlos 1. The day is bright and clear. A girl in a white dress strolls along the beach, the wind tossing her long blonde hair playfully. Up until a half a year ago, she had been confined to a bed. Carlos's eyes still tear up every time he sees her smile. Oh, is that Maria? Come on, Carlos. You don't always have to help me. That's the point of my rehab. Oh, you're right. Sorry, Maria. Carlos brushes her hair out of her face. It's definitely not the summer sun that's making him act out of sorts. It's the fact that his sister is here, standing before him. Maria grins up at him. What would Akane and Junpei say if they saw you being all fussy like this? It's fine. They understand how important you are to me. Both you and Junpei put your lives on the line. That was a different history. But going through that means we know how to treat reverie syndrome. I can't believe we have the ability to jump through space-time. I'm just glad you're able to control it now. It's all because Carlos met Akane and Junpei that Maria was able to recover. He wishes he could show them just how well she's doing. Right, because Akane obviously knows about shifting and whatnot, and doctors probably don't know of this phenomenon, so they weren't able to diagnose a cure properly. You're thinking about them right now, aren't you, Carlos? What makes you say that? Because you're smiling. Carlos closes his eyes as his unconscious smile turns fond. They're just about your age. It kind of feels like I gained a brother and another sister. You are going to their wedding, aren't you? Oh, of course, they're getting married. Yeah, and you're coming with me. But there is something Carlos needs to do first, back when the three of them parted ways. I'll be waiting to hear a word from you when you locate that terrorist. Carlos held his right hand out toward Akane and Junpei, and the other two grabbed onto it with their own. There was no way of knowing if Delta was telling the truth. But if he was, one fanatic would kill off all of humanity. Well, he wouldn't kill them off, like, directly. He just caused, or she, because we don't know what their gender is, he just caused a chain of events like that damn snail, right? To get humanity killed because of nuclear war, I suppose. Akane and Junpei vowed to find this person, and Carlos offered to help. He could still feel the strong bond between the three of them, their hands clasped together tightly. I suppose I better get used to talking more before the wedding, huh? Holding her hair out of her face, Maria reaches out to her brother, who takes her hand in his, and they continue walking down the beach. The same blue sky above them stretches over friends Carlos knows he can rely on. Oh, how sweet. Post-payoff, Akane and Junpei won. Junpei sits upon a white sofa somewhere within a secret location of Crash Keys, twiddling a pen and sighing. What else should I say? Laying on the table in front of him is a half-written letter. Suddenly, Akane pops up behind him. What are you doing, Junpei? She playfully teases. Gah! Junpei dives for the letter, but she snatches it from his fingers and begins reading. Let's see. Carlos, without you, Akane and I would have never gotten together. Thank you. Is this an invitation to the wedding? No, it's most definitely not. He makes a grab for the paper, but Akane quickly moves it out of his reach. Come on, that was a bit of a stick move. What if it was like a private letter that Junpei really wanted to surprise Akane with, and she just picks it up and reads in the middle of it? Not cool, Akane. It's just a progress report, Junpei mutters. Okay, yeah, I mentioned the wedding, but the date hasn't been set yet. I made a promise to you and your brother. We wouldn't get married until we've dealt with the fanatic. Jeez, Junpei, you're always leaving things until you deal with the current situation at hand, right? Like, he didn't celebrate their engagement until they escaped from the facility. At least that's what he said when he put the ring on her finger. Akane's face flushes bright red. She hastily hides her face behind the letter and goes back to reading. I'd like nothing more than to get the approval and blessing of our old friends, and those of you we met 6 months ago. Eyes wide, Akane glances up at Junpei. He avoids her gaze, awkwardly scratching the back of his head. You know, there's a history where I keep searching for you, even after I'm old and craggly. It still exists out there somewhere. And when I think of that, a sharp pain jolts through Junpei's face. Akane is pinching his cheek. Ow, that hurts! What are you doing? To prove to you that this isn't a dream. Akane giggles. You still can't believe we're together like this? Junpei shakes his head. You've changed a lot, Junpei. Half a year ago, you were never this honest. It's like... how do I want to describe it? Like a dream? Huh? Junpei leans in and quickly pinches Akane. Oh, now you've done it! She darts forward and goes after Junpei with both hands, getting in a pinch wherever she can, and Junpei does the same. Once they start laughing, it's very hard to stop, and they keep going until they're out of breath. I guess this is all thanks to Carlos too. That's why I'm writing that thank you letter. On Akane's left hand, a ring glitters on her ring finger. Well, at least he put it on eventually in the right hand. Sean, Eric, and Mira. Hey Mira, how are you feeling? Are you lonely? Come on, Eric. You visited last week. Eric smiles wryly and reaches out to Mira, not Maria, with his left hand. Mira does the same, and their hands with matching silver rings align on either side of the plexiglass window. So they got engaged as well. I brought a new guest to see you today. Eric shifts to the side, and a head pops into view. Hi, Mira. Long time no see. It's Sean, right? What, you brought Sean in there? Yep. I'm happy you remembered. Behind Mira, the sun is shining through an iron-barred window, lighting up the visitor room. So is she in prison, I guess? Can we really bring Sean in? He's got a helmet on. Surely the police would be like, Can I at least identify who you are? And then Sean will take his helmet off and then the police would freak out. It's been a long time, Sean. It's good to see you. The smile that appears on her face is real. Mira no longer needs to plaster on a fake one. Oh, okay. When I heard you turn yourself in, I was really surprised. So she volunteered herself. Okay. Eric was the one who convinced me. He said I should pay for my sins so we could be together. So that's why you got married in jail? Eric ducks his head shyly. Are you sure you're okay with this? Mira asks. He looks at her in confusion. What's up? Don't you regret marrying me? I did carve your heart out in another history. Isn't that what you said, Sean? Oh my gosh. So she knows. And he knows. Oh, of course, they will all know about all the different histories. Because the others share memories, right? But these guys don't have the ability to shift, so I guess Sean just explained it. Yeah, you did. Mira looks Mira straight in the eye. I've already told you this a bunch of times. I forgive you, no matter what happens. Besides, you haven't killed me in this history yet, right? Yet. Mira's lips twist wryly. She actually killed you in 2 histories. One where you both killed Q and Sean and escaped. She couldn't wait 3 days before she stabbed you and ripped your heart out. But the heart rippers killed people already. There's so many. Sean, stop it. Eric turns angrily on Sean, and Mira's face falls into a frown, but Sean continues speaking. You've turned yourself in, Mira, but that doesn't mean you've paid for all the crimes you did. I doubt the family and friends that were left behind would forgive you, even if you were put on death row. There's no way you can clear your sins here. Mira grits her teeth. But there is a way to clear them. Well, not what you've already done, technically. You'll have to pay for those your whole life. That will never change. But maybe you can in another universe. Suddenly, Sean's fist crashes through the plexiglass window. Ah! Mira jumps backward while Eric is frozen in shock. What are you? Eric can't even finish speaking before Sean moves. Jumping through the broken window, he kicks the outside wall of the visitor room, causing it to crumble and reveal a giant hole. An alarm immediately starts blaring and police officers rush into the room. But Sean darts forward and takes them all down in the blink of an eye. See, I told you. Just letting Sean in with his helmet on was just bad news. Should have turned him away. He holds his hand out to Mira. Let's go. Go? Where? I know where the transporter is being stored. You're saying we should go change history? Eric finally stutters. Sean nods. To stop young Mira from committing murder. Mira, I'm pretty sure that's the only way you can clear your sins. Mira stares out through the hole in the wall at the horizon extending beyond. And that's it. That's all the files. Huh. Interesting. Okay, so not all of my questions were answered, but I do have some thoughts as to what's going on with Zero Time Dilemma. Okay, so what did I like about Zero Time Dilemma? Because I have my likes and I have my dislikes of the last game in the Zero Escape series. I liked the tighter pacing. I feel like I've said this so many different times, but Virtuous Last Reward got just so repetitive towards the end. Just seeing Alice die over and over again, seeing Quark go missing over and over again, it just ruined a lot of the flow for it, and it made it a bit harder for me to tell what was going on because I'm always skipping cutscenes. And because you're always skipping cutscenes that you've seen, I don't know which cutscene I was skipping at the time. Was I skipping it where Alice is dead in Crew Quarters 2, or was Alice and Luna dead in Crew Quarters 2, and just made things a bit more boggling, whereas here in Zero Time Dilemma we've got different flows, and each of the flows are different. They have different outcomes, different rooms, and it was just so good to have a constant progression going on. I felt like every flow we were piecing a little bit more of the puzzle together, and just having the ability and freedom to choose the different fragments made it a much more unique experience. I can tell because I think someone mentioned before that they only found out about Radical 6 towards the end of their gameplay, right? Because the way you choose fragments, you can choose whatever order you like. And I thought that was pretty cool, that you can sort of discover things at a different pace compared to someone else, and you might figure things out faster and whatnot, which is pretty cool. I liked that there was a lot of voice acting in this, because this Zero Time Dilemma, of course, shifted towards a more telltale style of presentation, rather than just constant reading of the thing. I don't mind reading, just reading these files wasn't so bad, but I feel like it would have been a bit cooler just to see some of these played out as a cutscene. Less reading. Just reading only during the escape segments. I didn't have to put on so many voices, which was pretty cool. I enjoyed the environment. I enjoyed the atmosphere of Zero Time Dilemma over Virtuous Last Reward, because Virtuous Last Reward had just a bunch of blue and everything just started looking the same and just nothing really unique. Like, we did have Bee Garden, which was great, but everything else was just like, man, I'm getting tired of seeing all this blue, whereas the shelter, of course, looked a lot more different. 909, I think, had the superior environment and atmosphere with, like, a sinking ship, right? Like, I know they were actually in a facility in the desert, but just the thought of being on a sinking ship trying to get out before it floods really takes the cake for me. Music was great in Zero Time Dilemma. I mean, it was great in all the games. I really, really love the soundtrack for the Zero Escape games, and Zero Time Dilemma, no different. Pretty damn good on that front. Okay, now, in terms of things I do kind of dislike or I'm not quite a fan of, I did like... Okay, this is a bit of a mix. Like, I do like and I dislike the Q twist of having Q there the entire time, and there's lots of foreshadowing for it, which is great, and I really enjoyed that reveal. I remember just being gobsmacked when I first saw it. I was just going, what the fuck? Where does this guy come from?
The fuck?
Like, seriously? This is so bullshit. It's like an ass pull. But then, as you go through all the foreshadowing and whatnot, and then I just started to appreciate it more and more, which makes sense, right? Because when you're playing these mystery games, of course, being presented with all of the suspects, it makes it a bit easier for you to guess who the suspect's going to be. If you just hide them from existence in the first place, then you can't really figure out that that person's going to be Zero, right? And that's the unfortunate thing about what I dislike about the twist, is that if we knew that there was a wheelchair guy there, I have a feeling 95% of people would have been like, it's the guy in the wheelchair that's deaf and blind, right? And if we're the ones doing that, then why wasn't anyone playing the decision game considering Q to be a suspect, right? Like, we know Eric is a damn paranoid guy. He's always suspecting Sean, and, you know, good reason. Sean isn't on the list for decom participants, and he just turns up there. But, you know, why doesn't he suspect Q, right? When we say that Q's the one who killed Mira, he just goes straight up, that's impossible. How does he know? Like, yeah, we're told he's deaf and blind, and yes, he does have the opportunity to build his alibi, so to speak, because he was there at decom with them. He probably just faked being deaf and blind, and they probably didn't question it then, and so having seen it for a couple of days, they assumed it's correct. But still, like, wouldn't you just find it a bit suspicious that this guy's here and he's named the leader of the team? Of course, it could be like a cruel joke by Zero. But yeah, I feel like if we would have suspected Q of being Zero, surely some of the other characters would have as well. Especially because they said, or, you know, Phi, I think, is the one who mentioned Zero's either one of us or he's buggered off to another country because this is all pre-recorded, right? So, yeah, that's just my thoughts on the Q twist. There's also the fact that I know Q is supposed to be brother and whatnot, but I just can't get past the age thing. Like, I don't think there was anything that explained how he survived to be 124 and he looks like he's only 62. I know, you know, cloning gets involved later on in Virtuous Last Reward. We've got Left being cloned, and we got Dio being a product of that, but there's nothing to indicate that, you know, brother should have survived to be 124, right? He does have those alien eyes. I don't think that was really explained. Maybe I missed something, but yeah, nothing in the files explains the nature of his eyes. And if he's still alive in Virtuous Last Reward, the guy's pretty much almost 200. He's like 173. And I can imagine maybe he cloned himself in the future. That would be a bit more like easier to swallow. But I feel like it was just sort of just shoved in there, like, we'll just make him brother. Why not? Because he's an antagonist in Virtuous Last Reward, so we'll make this guy brother, even though... And we're actually going to shoot ourselves in the other foot by saying we send him back to 1904, so he's this extreme senior citizen who survives until 120s. Maybe it's explained because it's the year 2029 and maybe medicine is advanced by then, but still, I would have liked some sort of clue or hint or foreshadowing as to why he's managed to survive this long and still, you know, not be disabled, pretty much. I can see why people don't like it, Zero Time Dilemma, as a series finale as well, because I'll admit, when I first played and I finished the game, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Zero Time Dilemma, probably because I felt, or I considered this to be a bit more standalone. Like, I didn't really consider the other games in the series. I just looked at it like, Zero Time Dilemma, this is the ending for Zero Time Dilemma, okay, cool. So I guess if I was aware that they were going to continue with another Zero Escape game, Zero Time Dilemma wouldn't be that bad, I guess. I suppose, but as a series finale though, because I don't think there's any plans for a new Zero Escape, especially because the creators made a new studio, right, with the guy Kodaka who made Danganronpa, to make a new game with him. I feel like there's a lot of loose ends that were left untied, and I can see why they did like a little bit of a sequel hook, like, okay, now we're going to go after this religious fanatic person. We don't know who they are. That's going to be the next game, probably. But, you know, and there's also the fact that, you know, Zero's trained them and made sure that their resolve is to change the future. But isn't that why Sigma went back in the first place? Same with Akane. Like, their whole objective was to change the future in the first place. How does going through the decision game strengthen their resolve, right? Like, maybe Junpei's resolve, maybe Carlos's resolve. Mira and Eric won't be able to help because they don't even have the ability to shift. So, you know, that leads me to my other thing as to Mira and Eric's character. I appreciate that there's a bit of an epilogue here, but I feel like just C Team and D Team were a lot more superior to Q Team, in my opinion. Like, I enjoyed Sean's character. I'm refusing to call him Q now because, of course, Q's another character entirely. I enjoyed Carlos. I enjoyed Diana as new characters, but Q Team, I just feel like Mira and Eric kind of let them down in that department. I would have liked to see a little bit more out of them, either in the game or maybe just replace them, because why has Q put them in the facility? I'm aware that there's a connection that, you know, Mira is the one who killed Eric's mother and spurred on this chain of events that caused the entirety of the Zero Escape series, and Eric is, of course, the child of the victim of the person who died in the park because she took a different path. But if that's all it is, why did Q just put him in there? You know, like, I feel like a better idea may have been to just bring back Aoi, which I mentioned before when I said I'll go over this later on. We see that he's supporting Akane from the outside, but we see nothing of his support at all. And I just feel like it would have been cool to bring another 999 character back in. We don't have to bring we don't have to bring Seven, we don't have to bring Lotus in. We could just bring Aoi, because it makes sense for him to be here, because he's working with Akane, and having him trapped here and his ability to shift would have been pretty cool to explore as well, just to get a bit more background on him, because we've seen Akane in both 999 and Virtue's Last Reward. Santa was missing in Virtue's Last Reward, and it just would have been cool just to maybe catch up with him in Zero Time Dilemma, rather than just get a throwaway line, I think, in the decontamination room where Junpei talks about Seven and Lotus and whatnot. Like, Seven and Lotus don't have to get involved, but would have been nice to see Aoi get involved, I think, as well. And I thought there would be something that would come arising out of Eric's mother's death at the hands of Mira. Like, there could have been potential for conflict there, with Eric realizing that Mira is the one who killed his mother and caused his dad to go on a drunken rage, kill his brother and whatnot. But nothing came of that. In fact, he just forgives her and goes and tries to break her out of prison, which is a bit interesting. A bit of an interesting end to their character arc. And doesn't look like we get anything on D Team. Like, we don't get anything on Phi, Sigma, and Diana in this flow, which is also interesting, because Sigma and Phi were huge characters, of course, in Virtue's Last Reward. They were the protagonists and deuteragonists. But Phi didn't have much of a role here in Zero Time Dilemma, because, yeah, she was dead a lot of the time, and she's Delta's twin, right? So probably would have been nice to see something there, but I can see why she would have been relegated to a background kind of role, because there's a bunch of characters. Of course, you know, you can only give each character so much time. But yeah, I think that's my final thoughts. I think 999 is still probably the best of the Zero Escape series. I really enjoyed Zero Time Dilemma, but yeah, I can see why people don't appreciate this game as much, because of the twist, of the Q twist. I'm sure there were a lot of people who probably it probably rubbed them the wrong way. And I can see that it's not really a satisfactory end in terms of a series, and having all the questions answered and whatnot, and just the fact that we were being trained again, so to speak. So yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts were on Zero Time Dilemma and just the Zero Escape series in general. I'd love to hear them. Thank you so much for supporting me on the Zero Escape videos. I'm glad that you guys were here to watch them, enjoy my reactions to some of the twists, especially because some of these twists have been so outlandish, but Man, I really enjoyed that Q twist, but then, like I said, the more you think about it, you wonder why no one really questioned why Q was the bad guy. But yeah, anyway, that's all my thoughts. I'll see you guys around. Thank you again for watching and supporting the channel, and we'll see how we go choosing another game to play.